How it started the oil. The root of the story isn't 1953, it's decades earlier. Since the early 1900s, the Anglo-Persian Oil Company, renamed the Anglo-Iranian Oil Company, AIOC, later BP, held a British-controlled monopoly over Iran's oil under a deeply lopsided concession. Britain kept the overwhelming majority of the profits while Iran received a small royalty. By the late 1940s, Iranian nationalist anger over this arrangement, and over Britain's broader political interference in the country, had reached a boiling point. In March 1951, Iran's parliament, the Majlis, voted to nationalize the AIOC. The following month, Mohammad Mosaddegh leader of the National Front, a broad coalition of secular nationalists, liberals, and some Islamic factions, became prime minister on the strength of his role as the nationalization movement's chief advocate. Mosaddegh was enormously popular. To most Iranians, reclaiming the country's oil from a foreign company was a matter of basic sovereignty. Britain reacted with alarm, not just over lost revenue, but over the precedent nationalization could set across the rest of the Middle East, where British and Western firms controlled oil in multiple countries. London organized an international boycott of Iranian oil, crippling Iran's economy, and began quietly plotting to remove Mosaddegh. Britain RECRUITS Washington. Britain initially tried to handle the problem alone, but lacked the covert capability after Mosaddegh expelled British diplomats from Iran in 1952. London turned to the United States for help. President Truman's administration was initially reluctant. Truman was wary of being seen to crush a nationalist, anti-colonial movement. That changed with the election of Dwight Eisenhower in late 1952. The new administration, shaped by Cold War containment thinking and fears that Iran's economic collapse, worsened by the British oil embargo, could open the door to the Soviet-aligned Tudeh Communist Party, became receptive to British pressure. This is a key point historians stress. The American decision to act was driven primarily by Cold War anxiety about a possible communist takeover not by a direct American corporate stake in Iranian oil at the time. The U.S. had no equivalent of the AIOC operating in Iran before the coup. Part 3. Operation Ajax TPAJAX. The CIA and Britain's MI6 jointly planned the operation, codenamed TPAJAX, Operation Ajax, by the CIA. The plan, orchestrated by the CIA in collaboration with Britain's MI6, called for the Shah, Mohammad Pahlavi, to formally dismiss Mosaddegh and replace him with General Fazlollah Zahedi. Kermit Roosevelt Jr., grandson of Theodore Roosevelt and the CIA's top operative in Iran, led the on-the-ground execution. The operation combined bribery of military officers, politicians, and clergy, propaganda campaigns in the Iranian press, and paid crowds designed to manufacture the appearance of spontaneous public unrest against Mosaddegh. The first attempt failed. In mid-August 1953, the Shah signed a decree dismissing Mosaddegh, but Mosaddegh, tipped off in advance, refused to step down and had the messenger arrested. The Shah, alarmed, fled first to Baghdad and then to Rome. For a brief moment, the coup looked like it had collapsed entirely. It hadn't. CIA headquarters actually sent a cable ordering the operation shut down, worried it could be traced back to the United States, but Kermit Roosevelt reportedly ignored the order and pressed ahead anyway. Roosevelt and his Iranian allies regrouped, using paid crowds, sympathetic military units, and mobilized street gangs to reverse the momentum. On August 19, 1953, the second attempt succeeded. Crowds flooded the streets of Tehran and headed toward Mossadegh's residence. By nightfall, after a day of violence that left an estimated 300 people dead, the prime minister had fled. Mosaddegh was arrested, later tried, and sentenced to 3 years in solitary confinement, followed by house arrest for the rest of his life. General Zahedi became the new prime minister, and the Shah returned from Rome days later to reclaim the throne with dramatically expanded personal power. Part 4. The Aftermath. The oil dispute that started the whole crisis was resolved in Britain's and now America's favor. A new international consortium took over Iranian oil production. AIOC retained a large share, but for the first time, American oil companies, Standard Oil, Gulf, Texaco, and others, were cut in as well, splitting a significant portion of the concession. The Shah's restored monarchy, though triumphant, was left profoundly vulnerable, its legitimacy damaged by its dependence on foreign intervention, and its existing security forces having proven unreliable during the crisis. In 1957, with direct CIA and Israeli Mossad assistance in training and organization, the Shah created *SAVAK*, his secret police and intelligence service, which became infamous over the following 2 decades for surveillance, arbitrary arrest, and torture of political dissidents. The Shah's government banned the Tudeh Party and suppressed political dissent broadly, and by 1978, Iran officially held some 2,200 political prisoners, a number that multiplied rapidly as the following year's revolution unfolded. The Shah ruled for another 26 years, backed heavily by American support, until he was overthrown by the *1979 Iranian Revolution *, which replaced the monarchy with the Islamic Republic under Ayatollah Ruhollah Khomeini, the government still in power in Iran today. It took decades for Washington to publicly acknowledge its role. It took 60 years before the CIA formally acknowledged its role in the coup and released documents detailing the plans to remove Mosaddegh. A partial internal history was declassified in 2000, and a fuller batch of roughly 1,000 pages of documents was released in 2013 and 2017. What historians actually get wrong. This is the section that separates a lazy retelling from an accurate one, because there isn't just one myth here. There are two, pulling in opposite directions. Myth 1: the popular version. It was simple oil greed. America wanted Iran's oil. This is the most common shorthand version of the story, and it's an oversimplification. The initial motive for removing Mosaddegh was British, tied directly to the loss of AIOC's oil monopoly. But the American decision to get involved was driven primarily by Cold War containment fears. Eisenhower's team worried an economically collapsing, oil-embargoed Iran would become vulnerable to the Soviet-aligned Tudeh Party, not because Washington was chasing Iranian oil for its own sake. American companies only benefited afterward as part of the new international consortium, a consequence of the coup, not its original American motive. Myth 2: the CIA's role has been wildly overstated. Iranians overthrew Mosaddegh themselves. Since the 2010s, a competing revisionist school of history, led by writers like Darius Bayandor and Ray Takey, has argued the opposite extreme, that the coup succeeded mainly because of a genuine popular uprising against Mosaddegh, driven by Shiite clergy and ordinary Iranians turning against his leadership, with the CIA's role reduced to a minor, largely symbolic footnote. Takey has specifically dismissed the idea that the CIA played a crucial role as a myth, arguing instead that Mosaddegh was overthrown in a popular uprising catalyzed by his own poor leadership. Mainstream historians who specialize in the declassified record have pushed back hard on this. Scholars, including Mark Gasiorowski, who has studied the CIA's role in Iran for 3 decades, have concluded that this revisionist account is one-sided and misleading, while other historians argue it relies on discredited sources to relieve the United States of responsibility. Detailed critiques of Bayandor's work found that he overemphasized the role of civilian crowds, while underemphasizing the Iranian military units that were directly organized and funded by the CIA, and that he failed to properly account for extensive U.S. and British efforts to foment opposition to Mosaddegh in the first place. In short, the crowds in the streets on August 19th were real, and Iranian actors, some military officers, some clergy, some ordinary citizens genuinely participated. But the declassified paper trail shows those crowds and officers were, to a substantial degree, organized, funded, and directed by American and British intelligence, not a spontaneous popular movement acting independently. Myth 3. The coup went off exactly as planned. It didn't. The first attempt collapsed within days, sent the Shah fleeing the country, and very nearly caused CIA headquarters to abandon the operation entirely. What actually toppled Mosaddegh was a rogue field officer's decision to keep going after being told to stop, a detail that only became public with the 2017 document release, and one that undercuts the clean, professional operation image the coup is often given in pop history retellings. Myth 4. 1953 caused 1979 in a straight line. It's tempting and common in popular narratives to draw a direct, simple causal line from the 1953 coup straight to the 1979 revolution. The relationship is real but not that simple. The coup didn't make the 1979 revolution inevitable by itself. It entrenched an autocratic monarchy, discredited constitutional, secular nationalism as a political option for a generation, and gave the Shah's opponents, including the clergy who later led the revolution, a powerful grievance to draw on. But 25 years, the Shah's own white revolution reforms, SAVAK's repression, oil-fueled inequality, and clashes with religious leaders all shaped the specific path to 1979 as well.